Every time you buy something online, there's a good chance Stripe is working behind the scenes. Amazon uses it, Shopify uses it, Google, Ford, Instacart. Millions of businesses in nearly 50 countries depend on it every single day. Stripe processes over $1 trillion in payments every year. It is one of the most valuable private companies on the planet, worth over $90 billion. But here's what makes this story different from every other tech story you've heard. Stripe wasn't built in Silicon Valley by Stanford graduates with trust funds and garage offices in Palo Alto. It was built by two brothers from a tiny village in Ireland, a village with no venture capital, no startup scene, no path to the tech industry whatsoever. Patrick Collison was 19. His brother John was 17. They were immigrants. Outsiders. Two Irish kids who had never set foot in Silicon Valley before, and they built one of the most important companies of the 21st century. This is the story of the Collison brothers, the most unlikely founders in tech history. The village of Dromineer sits on the edge of Lough Derg in County Tipperary, Ireland. It's a quiet place, green fields, stone walls, a lake. 200 people, this is where Patrick and John Collison grew up. Their father Dennis was an electronic engineer, their mother Lily was a microbiologist. The household wasn't wealthy, but it was electric with curiosity. Books everywhere, discussions about science and technology at the dinner table, questions encouraged, ideas taken seriously, but Dromineer in the 90s was a world away from the digital revolution. The internet was something the Collison brothers read about in books before they ever experienced it. They had no consistent internet connection at home, no tech community around them, no mentors in the software world. And yet, Patrick started programming at 10 years old, not because someone taught him, because he taught himself. He borrowed books, took a computer course at the University of Limerick when he was just 8, and by the time he was a teenager, he was writing code that most university students couldn't understand. At 16, Patrick won Ireland's Young Scientist of the Year competition. His project? A new programming language built on Lisp, one of the oldest and most complex programming languages in existence. A 16-year-old from a village of 200 people, competing with the brightest young minds in the country, and winning. He left school a year early and was accepted into MIT. His younger brother John was just as gifted, quiet, focused, and deeply analytical. He later earned the highest scores in the entire country on the Irish Leaving Certificate. John was accepted into Harvard. Two brothers from a tiny Irish village, one at MIT, one at Harvard. Already, the story was extraordinary, but the Collison brothers didn't come to America to get degrees. They came to build things. In 2007, while still teenagers, Patrick and John founded their first company, a software tool called Shopper, named after the Irish word for shop. When the Irish government declined to fund it, the brothers packed their bags and flew to California. They were accepted into Y Combinator, Silicon Valley's most famous startup accelerator. Their company evolved into Octomatic, a platform that helped eBay sellers manage their businesses. Think about what that means. Two teenagers from a country with no real tech startup culture, with no connections in Silicon Valley, competing against the smartest founders in America and winning. On Good Friday 2008, Patrick and John sold Octomatic for $5 million. Patrick was 19, John was 17, two teenage immigrants from rural Ireland were now millionaires. Most people would have celebrated, taken a break. Enjoyed the money, the Collison brothers went back to school. Patrick returned to MIT. John enrolled at Harvard. They could have coasted on their success for years. But something was nagging at them. Both brothers had experienced the same frustrating problem. Every time they tried to build a product that accepted payments online, the process was a nightmare. Setting up a payment system meant weeks of paperwork, complicated bank integrations, confusing APIs, and endless bureaucracy. In 2009, on a drive back from a Y Combinator event, John turned to Patrick and said something simple. Why is it so hard to pay for things on the internet? That question became Stripe. In 2010, both brothers dropped out of their Ivy League universities. Patrick left MIT, John left Harvard. Let that sink in. Two of the most valuable degrees in the world, thrown away to chase an idea that most people thought was already solved. PayPal existed, banks existed. Why would anyone need Stripe? Because the Collisons saw what nobody else did. The problem wasn't that payments were impossible. The problem was that they were unnecessarily painful, and painful meant millions of businesses were never built. They moved to San Francisco and began building a payment platform from scratch. Their idea was radical in its simplicity. They wanted to make accepting payments online as easy as adding 7 lines of code. That's it. 7 lines, no lawyers, no complex bank negotiations, no months of setup, just plug it in and start getting paid. They launched Stripe with seed funding from Y Combinator, and almost immediately the tech world took notice. PayPal co-founders Peter Thiel and Elon Musk invested. So did Sequoia Capital and Andreessen Horowitz. Not because of the Collison brothers' pedigree, because the product was that good. Developers loved it. Startups loved it. Within months, Stripe was powering payments for Lyft, Facebook, Shopify, and dozens of fast-growing companies. And the Collisons didn't stop at simple payments. They built fraud detection systems, subscription billing, business incorporation services, international payment infrastructure. They turned Stripe into the backbone of internet commerce. By 2021, Stripe was valued at over $95 billion. Patrick and John Collison, 2 brothers from Dromedary, were among the youngest self-made billionaires in the world. But here's what makes them truly different. They didn't chase fame. They didn't buy yachts or sports teams. Patrick reads voraciously and publishes his book lists online. John bought a crumbling estate in rural Ireland and is restoring it by hand. They speak softly, work obsessively, and remain deeply connected to their roots. When a journalist once suggested they had succeeded despite growing up in rural Ireland, both pushed back. Patrick wrote, "We are who we are because we grew up where we did, not despite it, because of it." If this story inspired you, hit subscribe right now. We tell stories like this every single week. The real stories behind the companies that shape our world. Turn on notifications so you never miss. 1. Today Stripe processes over $1 trillion every year. It operates in nearly 50 countries. It employs thousands of people. And it is one of the most critical infrastructure companies on the internet. And it was all built by 2 brothers who grew up in a village with no internet. Who taught themselves to code from borrowed books? Who left Ireland as teenagers with nothing but curiosity and an idea? They didn't have the Silicon Valley playbook. They didn't have wealthy parents or powerful connections. They were immigrants, outsiders, kids from a place nobody in tech had ever heard of. And every time you tap a button to buy something online, every time a payment goes through seamlessly, instantly, invisibly, remember, that ease exists because 2 brothers from Tipperary thought it should. Patrick and John Collison proved something the tech world still underestimates. Innovation doesn't need a zip code. It just needs 2 brothers, a frustrating problem, and the refusal to accept that things can't be better.